I figured it out. I figured out how to deal with abortion. This is how you deal with it, Christian wise. It says in the Bible, for one to give up one's life for another is the greatest honor. And God gives people free will. If a girl decides that she wants to have an abortion, the baby is a martyr to give her freedom to live her life. Okay? It is right that whenever people have sex and they have babies, that it is wrong to get an abortion, but we can see those babies as martyrs, giving those women the freedom to go on. And really, we shouldn't be controlling other people as Christians. Because the last thing that Jesus was tempted with by the devil was control the world. Therefore, we shouldn't try to control the world. We should be living a life that is not like the world among the people in the world to give them an idea of the right way to live. But whenever you force it on them, you're turning children away. You're not bringing them together. You're dispersing them, and that's what Jesus means. Whenever you, I mean, are you bringing people to Christ, or are you scattering them? You're scattering them. You're making them upset at you and afraid of you. Now, the reason why people would normally kill a Christian is because they feel like the Christians are making them um, the Christians are making them look bad. The Christians are living a good life. They talk about Jesus and things like that. People get annoyed at you talking about sin and things like that. And so they're going to kill you for that reason. They're not going to kill you, I mean, for controlling them. I mean, they would kill you for controlling them more so than you just speaking about Jesus. And Jesus was never for killing. But if you let people, I mean, it's kind of a speck in your own eye to clear the mote from a brother's eye. You're you're blaming them for killing babies, but then you are pro putting soldiers out on the battlefield whenever the war is not threatening us. It's not self. We're not. Um, we're not protecting America, are we really? Whenever we went to Iraq, we weren't protecting America. So what were we doing? We're liberating Iraq. That's that's an assumption. And the pathway to evil is controlling other people. It's one and the same as rape. Did the people of Iraq consent to America coming in to liberate them? No. We raped that country. It was non-consensual. They were not for it. We were all for it. We saw Sodom as a as a force to be reckoned with. And there 3% of the people in Iraq were Christian. This is not true of Muslim theocracies. This was not a Muslim theocracy. So we've got people in our country call themselves Christians that do not even understand the Bible. You know, they don't understand things like whenever Jesus told Peter to put down the sword, because he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, right? And so the way I see it is that it's both killing, and you're just picking one in favor of the other, you know, and you're so willing to go and clear that speck from their eyes, and the liberals are not for war and you're for war, and they're against you for that reason, and you shouldn't even be for war in the first place. In fact, the Christians shouldn't even be voting, because that means they're in the world. They're in their world and they're of the world. They're trying to control the world. That was the last thing that Satan tempted Jesus with, that he was not going to have any part to do with. So why are you voting? Because the conservatives were put together to create the Republican Party. The fiscal conservatives, which are all about money, which Jesus said the love of money is the root of all evil, right? So what do fiscal conservatives love? Money. What does Trump love? Money. And you're over there with them, a part of that party, and what has happened to the Christian faith as a result of that? You've become more about money. You've welcomed in these guys who give the prosperity prayer. They give the prosperity prayer and they turn God into an ATM machine, into a candy machine. That if you give money, then God's going to give you money. No, God is not going to give you money. God might give you wisdom, but he's probably, and if he gives you money, you're going to gain wisdom as a result of that, because then you're going to see all your friends treating you like a means to their end. You will become an ATM machine, a candy machine. That's what will happen to you. So, see, am I talking? And I'm talking now. I'm playing the game Planetside 2 over here. But I was just thinking, there's a way to put everything in kind of a perspective. The thing is that Jesus came here to change each person individually. He didn't come here to change groups, governments, countries, counties. He wasn't here to change laws. He was here to influence the individuals so that they would change laws, or they would make laws to, to benefit people, But God gives everyone free will, and that means that we shouldn't be out there telling people. I mean, we can be out there telling people to do stuff, but we shouldn't be forcing them to do that stuff, okay? And I was watching some guy who was talking about abortion clinics, and he's going around creating abortion-free counties in Texas. And then he was talking about suing people who were giving abortions. Well, what's going to happen? These girls are going to go use coat hangers to get abortions. They're going to use something that's unclean, and it's going to harm their life, okay? And so not only so you're not killing babies now, you're killing girls who are wishing to have abortions. That's who you're killing. And you're giving them, I mean, at the, if it doesn't kill them, they're going to get an infection and they might get hepatitis C that's incurable. And so they spend the rest of their life fighting hepatitis C because they weren't permitted a clean abortion. I admit that what they do to get the babies out is terrible. I'm pro-life in that respect, but I'm saying that anytime you make laws like, during Prohibition, people were not permitted to drink alcohol, and I'm completely against alcohol. But whenever they were prevented from drinking alcohol, they broke the law, and there were places where people were serving alcohol, secret clubs. And what it gave rise to was the belief that, well, it's okay to break this law. What other laws can we break? And it created a life of crime. It created guys like Al Capone. Those guys really did well during Prohibition, because how were they making their money? By selling alcohol. How easy is it to make alcohol? Very easy to make alcohol. That was the problem. That's what created that crime. That all that crime in Chicago was the Prohibition. Okay. There will be something similar if you keep people from having abortions. Leave it up to God. That's what your religion's for, is that you're leaving it up to God to deal with the things that you can't control. You can't control other people, but you can leave it to God to deal with those people. Okay? And that's why you pray. It's to relieve the stress. It's a physical thing. The stress suppresses your immune system. It suppresses the your tissue regrowth. It suppresses cognition, makes it hard for you to think, and it suppresses reproduction, and so then you can't have children. So you don't have children. You're susceptible to disease, and you can't think straight. You might give in to road rage, because that's why road rage happens, is that somebody needs to get to work. The person in front, they see the person in front of them is keeping them from getting to work. They get upset. They get their gun and they blow the guy's head off. See? And that's because their cognition isn't working. Their brain isn't working. They're not thinking. They're not thinking about what's important. Having a livelihood or blowing a person's brain off. See? Because they're in survival mode. They're in fight or flight mode, okay? So anyhow, the thing is that the bottom line is that it's wrong to vote as a Christian. And it's wrong to be with these guys who are fiscal conservatives that are loving money. The trickle down economy didn't work. You know why? Because people get dopamine when they make discoveries, and one of the discoveries would be, if you're rich, was the ability to save money. And so you're willing to waste a lot of time to save money. What I tell the rich people is, wouldn't it be better if you had all that money to spend money to save time? Because by the Buddhist belief system, one of the single greatest teachings of Buddha is that time is not, you cannot make time. Time is something that should be cherished. And so for that, I would say that you cannot, money is, you can make money, you can't make time. So why not spend time to save money rather than to save time, or rather than to spend time to save money? You know, you spend money to save time. So the thing is that you've got these rich people that are planning all of these generations of their families, and I got this from I'm sitting here in an ant in a biolab on Planet Side 2 that I'm getting Cynthium from, and that's the reason why I'm in the ant, is because it's got radar on it, and I have to move my joystick every now and then, otherwise it'll kick me out of the game. But I'm collecting Cynthium, which I'm going to use for orbitals in the game. Orbitals are like nukes. And it's a game. It's not reality. But, you know, anyhow, I'm against war. I'm not against virtual war. Virtual war is, you can't kill anybody in virtual wars. You know, it's virtual killing. I mean, porn is virtual adultery. You can't ruin people's relationships with porn. You can if you are in a relationship. You can't relate. You can't change. You can't go over and do adultery, going and chasing after somebody's wife with porn, because the girls in the porn magazine, you don't know them, do you? You don't know them. I don't know them. So would I be chasing after them? Would I be committing adultery that way? And so I would imagine back in Jesus' time, he was talking about people that were literally looking at women and committing adultery with them. But if you were thinking about a woman, would it be the same thing? It said if you look at a woman in lust, you've already committed adultery. You've already committed adultery with her in your heart. But pornography, is it the same thing? I don't think so. The worst that pornography is that it's people that are probably going to have sex anyhow because that's what they're doing. And they're probably doing it to get married, and I mean to pay for their dowries. And that actually is what's occurring in the porn industry, is that all these women that show up in these porn films, they're trying to allot an amount of money together so that they can get married. See the um, see the movie Pornocracy, and in the movie they're sitting there talking about all of the porn, the girls they could have in their porn movies, and they're saying, well, we can't use her because she's currently having a baby, or this lady has already left because she's gone and had a family. So the thing is that when you're fighting against porn, you're fighting against people who have God's free will to do what they want, and they're going to make it whether you want it or not. It's going to be out there. People are going to have access to it, but they're collecting the money together, and what are they going to do with it? They're going to do with it what every woman wants to do in this: have children and get married, right? Most women do. And why did they get involved with porn in the first place? Because nobody respected them in getting work any other way. So they turned to that. And they also turned to those things to get out of the hands of men that would treat them badly. I mean, if you're a beautiful woman, what's going to happen to you a lot? You're probably going to get raped a lot. And I mean, to get out of that situation, what will you do? Go and be in a porn film, make a lots of money, then go and buy a big house and a lot of security to protect you from all these men that are chasing after you all the time. See? And so the thing is that the world's not crazy. The world is crazy. There is crazy stuff going on in the world. But the thing with Jesus and with God and everything is they want you to be unstressed. They want you to think clearly. I mean, if your cognition is hampered, can you even think about Jesus's sayings? Can you even think about the logic in all of this? Okay? No, because you're being overstressed by people who have a love for money. It's the root of all evil. And so you've got all these corporations that are making people work like dogs. And who is God going to be more for? The people at the bottom or the people at the top? The people at the bottom. And so the people that are working like dogs, who are overstressed, their cognition is hampered, they're doing all sorts of stuff, drugs and sex and stuff like that, they're going to get more favor from God than the people that are at the top who are abusing everybody. And you can't control the people at the top because they don't believe in God anyhow. A good number of them don't. They're up there. They're in the world and they're of the world. They're trying to control the world. They're part of the hierarchy. They don't realize that they have limited perception, and because of that limited perception, they don't have the capacity to trust anyone beyond their inner circle, and they have to delegate responsibility. There are people up there, Christians. There are people that are in that because that's their job or whatever. But when you control people, do you suggest to them, or do you go up and you make them? You know, going around suggesting things, you know, some people you have to control, the people who are controlling other people. Those are the people to control. The people who are controlling other people, and the people at the bottom should be suggesting things. They should be suggesting things and not forcing people to do stuff. When you got people forcing other people, there should be people above them forcing them. forcing them not to force the other people. Because, as you say, as you've heard a billion times before, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Okay. So how are you forcing people at the bottom? How are you suggesting things? Are you forcing them? Are you telling them this will mean your job if you don't do this or 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 this? And you've got this policy that if any of those things get broken, you lose your job. It's you're playing a game of unforgiveness. You're not forgiving. You're not able to forgive anyone. See, you could reason it with him. He says, I run a business here and I can't afford to have people not doing anything and pay them. So what I'm going to do is you're going to take a cut in your pay because you're not. And see, that's better than forcing them out of their job, is giving them a cut in their pay. It's a penalty, okay? And then they'll listen to you. But if you go over and you say, well, I'll be forced to fire you if you keep doing this. See, that isn't a gentle persuasion. That is forceful persuasion. You're going to stress them out. Their cognition's going to be hampered. They're going to work much more poorly. So, and we've got all sorts of problems in this world, and a lot of it would be fixed with education. But what education works and what doesn't work? I understand that only about 100 to 200 people watch these videos, but they really like it when I sing. That's fine by me. That's part of the reason why I've got the singing in there, is so that they have this other stuff they can listen to. And 100 of them out there is fine with me. I don't need 1,000 people in there. 100 is enough, because then they spread on to 100 more. And then everybody eventually gets educated. But there are people that will not listen to these messages. They can only go so far until they disagree. And that's philosophy. You keep saying stuff. If you go through any philosophy book and you read philosophy, or you do this, don't do that, this kind of stuff, avoid this kind of thing, or, you say that stuff to people, eventually they're going to get caught up on one thing and they'll stop listening to you. It's probably the reason why they say philosophy students don't, there's no work for them. There is work for them. Comedians, good comedians are philosophy majors that have figured out how to make money. That's one of my favorite jokes. And it's because it's true. Bill Murray is a philosophy major. I'm sure a lot of the good comics, such as Rick Moranis, I'm sure Rick Moranis has taken philosophy. That's what makes good. That's what makes good comics. Bad comics are the ones that rely on relationships and embarrassment. So they give you embarrassing stuff, and you laugh as a result of things being embarrassing. Or they cuss and you're embarrassed by the cussing, so you laugh. So they cuss, they embarrass, they pick on people, they pick on couples. There's no irony in any of the jokes. There's very little irony in their jokes. Irony is how you make people laugh, is by, like Stephen Wright type of stuff. Like, or just weird stuff like Stephen Wright. I've got a seashell collection. Maybe you've seen it. It's on all the beaches of the world. And he says stuff like, I put scotch tape on the mirror to keep myself from going into another dimension. Once I put instant coffee in a microwave oven and almost went back in time. Stephen Wright jokes. That's a guy right there who understands ideas. He gets ideas. We're the same in a way. We've got all of these neurons in our heads. A neuron's like a mini committee. It's like a committee of about 7 guys. And they take all these inputs and they produce an output. And so the output is either yes or no. So the committee is, they get certain inputs and they say, so who favors this, yay or nay? And they go yay. And so it comes out as a yes or it comes out as a no. And you put all those together in order to make decisions. Your brain is all about making choices. The neurons themselves are atomic versions of your brain. They make choices. And so some of us guys who really think a lot about stuff, our neurons are connected to all these little segments in our brain that are constantly saying, I've got something to say, I've got something to say, I've got something to say, I've got something to say. So I'll start talking along, and in some of those cases will correlate their yeses, and they'll say, we've got something to say. And so then I'll chime out that thing, and then I'll be talking along, and then some other neurons will get together and they'll say, hey, we've got something to say. And then that gets put out in my mouth. I don't know where this stuff comes from. I don't think about it ahead of time. It just comes right in my head and goes right out in my mouth. But sometimes the stuff, when I talk about it, I start thinking about it and go, it would really be better to say it this way. Just like the idea that I am pro-life and but I believe that people who are pro-choice should have the freedom of will that God gives them. The idea behind us having 2 eyes, I believe, is the limited perception, or we don't have eyes all over, is to permit us to make choices. And in making choices, you can make mistakes. And what do we call those mistakes? If they're against God's will, they're called sin. So anything that's against God's will, any of those choices that God wouldn't make are called sin. And we make them all the time. So it is practically impossible for us not to sin. That's the reality. But what do? We blame other people. We say, oh man, this guy's causing all the trouble. This guy is causing all the trouble. When we communicate, there's so much of a chance of confusing what other people are saying because we all conceptualize information differently. And so communicating to each other is imprecise. It's got error in it. We were given this limited perception to permit us to explore everything that's good and everything that's bad so that we would know why God's will is good. Okay? And good and God are interchangeable. And if anything I say is wrong, I be cursed. According to the Bible, I be cursed. And I just got kicked out of the video game just as we won. I think we won the game. I'm not sure. Maybe we didn't. But I got all my Cynthium, so I'm quitting the. I'm going, oh man, I forgot to twitch my joystick to leave me in the game. But if you don't believe me, I'll just show you. Yeah, it kicked me out of the game. I don't know if you saw that. It says you have been disconnected due to inactivity, and you can hear that I was in the game. That's the sound of samples looping that haven't been stopped, and that's what happens in this video game. They didn't put in the code to stop the samples playing, so you've got this perpetual looping of the sample. Anyhow, I'm going to stop this